Greetings to all in the love and light of the one infinite creator. My name is Jonathan Tong, and I'm facilitator for the Seattle Law of One study group. We can be found on the list of study groups on the LNL Research website shown on your page. We can also be found on Facebook under Seattle Law of One group. We do meet twice a week on Tuesdays from 3:30 to 5:30 p.m. Pacific time, as well as Saturdays from 8 to 10 a.m. Pacific time. You don't have to live in Seattle or anywhere near Seattle in order to join our Facebook group or to join our Zoom sessions. Anyone who is available at that time is welcome to join us. It's probably the best way to get announcements for future events, including Q&A sessions with Jim and with Gary, Austin, Trish, and the rest of the LNL channeling team. We do actually have a YouTube channel also under Seattle Law of One Study Group. That's where we have recordings of previous Q&A sessions. Great place to look for more gems of love and wisdom. If you click on each video, you'll see underneath there's a list of topics and timestamps there, and encourage you to go there and browse and see if there's anything of interest to you at this particular time in your spiritual journey. And today we are once again lucky to be joined by Mr. Jim McCarty for some informal questions and answers and conversation about the law of one and how to live it in our daily lives. How are you doing today, Jim?
Doing well. It's a reasonably comfy day here in Louisville, Kentucky. About 50 some degrees, yeah. Oh, which is normal for this time of year. We've had some hard freezes so far, so I imagine we'll have more. The winter's just starting.
I know you've been doing a lot of mulching and work with the ginkgo trees in your...
Yeah, I still got some of those in the backyard. Actually, they're my neighbors, 3 ginkgo trees, and the wind comes from the direction that blows everything into my yard. So I'm putting those in. Actually, I'm putting those in garbage cans to yard waste pickup because I don't know if you all know it.
How many cans have you filled up now?
Oh, probably 20 or 30, and I've got another 15 or so ready to go. I mean, still on the ground out there. But the ginkgo leaf is leathery. It doesn't crunch like most leaves do. And so I just put them in garbage cans. And next week, I'll get the last ones in there.
Last ones. Well, I want to thank you, as always, for your service to others and sharing this time together. I do see a bunch of questions in the chat window, so I'm going to want to get to those pretty shortly. I did have one question that I wanted to ask for starters. I was reading yesterday's entry in the Camelot Journal, which I read every day and cannot recommend highly enough to folks. Jim puts entries in there every day sharing his reflections on these days channeling sessions with the entity known as Quo. And if you just Google up Camelot Journal, you can find it easily enough, if not on the LNL website. Yesterday, you were sharing reflections on a channeling session with Quo back on November 12th, 1989. And the main question was really asking about the function of emotions in the life of the spiritual seeker. It was a beautiful session, and the whole thing is well worth reading. And I appreciate all the thoughts that you shared and references with other sessions as well. And I was just wondering, at this time, do you have any thoughts or reflections on the role of emotions, deep emotions, what Quo has referred to many times as pure emotion, on your own spiritual journey in this incarnation?
Well, sure. I think everybody does. I mean, the deep emotions usually come up when there's time of trial and tribulation, the loss of a loved one or a cat or a dog, I've gone through all of that. And I think it's something that helps us to remember that life is a short period of time in which we have a chance to grow. And sometimes a lot of growth comes from difficult times, those deep emotions that are hard to take, and you have to process them. It's not that life comes and growth comes from easy times. That doesn't stretch you any. It doesn't exercise your muscle of desire and dedication and service. So, yeah, I think everybody's been through those. I have too, for sure.
I remember Carla said on more than a few occasions that the most difficult journey we will take in this incarnation is the 14 inches from heart. Have
Yeah.
you found that to be true for you as well? Has it been a difficult journey making that journey from the head to the heart?
Yeah, it took me quite a while. Probably about, well, there were two experiences. Took about 68 years for me to love myself. And then I think it was the summer that Carla passed away. She passed away April 1st, 2015. And then that summer on August 31st, we were just getting ready to have a homecoming. And I was meditating. And I don't know why I decided to do it at that time, but I asked the creator to come into my heart and nothing happened. And I thought, well, that creator's already there. So I'm going to ask Jesus to come into my heart. All of a sudden, my heart started beating. I started crying. And I knew that Jesus was in my heart. And from then on, I could love everybody else as well as loving myself. And Jesus said, love your neighbor as yourself. So that suggests that loving yourself comes first. It's not that you're selfish. It's that you have to build that foundation and then build upon it with loving other people. So.
Indeed. What a beautiful story. Thank you for sharing that. I do want to go ahead straight to the chat window. I do see a number of questions in there, and we always love when people bring questions to these. So keep them coming. If you have any questions to ask, please go ahead, type them in the chat window, and we'll go in the order that they appear there. I do see, Curtis, I saw your hand up. Are you asking a follow-up question to this or a different question? Yeah, go for it.
You mentioned emotions. I didn't know about what was read before, but my understanding or my opinion is, aren't we here to express emotions? Isn't that one the biggest catalyst we can have is our emotions?
I think that's probably true. One of the things that the quote Channeling had to say was that a lot of the times people are afraid to express emotions. And they only express surface emotions. And what we get the most growth out of, in my opinion, agreeing with Quo, is that the deeper emotions that get down to who we really are at the moment. And they were talking about sometimes children come into the life experience and they have the ability to express emotions right away, but as they're enculturated, as time goes on, they're kind of taught not to do that because it's a painful situation and they're not taught how to express emotions. So it's something that sometimes we have to learn how to do it. And other times it just comes because we can't stop it. So I think it's different for everyone.
Sometimes I have some emotions that come upon, and when I get that deep feeling like happiness, or I want to cry because it was so, I feel like, wow, the creator is experiencing this and this is what they wanted. This is going, this is exactly what they wanted me to do so they can feel it. That's how I felt about emotions.
I think that's true with everything we do, that all of what we do and think is a way of helping the creator to know itself. But it also is a way of helping us know ourselves and to know the creator too. So it's a win-win-win situation.
What a beautiful question. What a beautiful response. Thank you for asking that, Curtis. Did you have any other follow-ups on that? Awesome. Thank you so much. Linda, I see you had a question about meditation. Would you like to go ahead and ask?
Hey, Jim, it's good to see you. Morris sends his regards. He's out cleaning the church today, so
Yes.
won't be joining us. But first of all, I do want to thank both you and Curtis for the little interchange that just went on. Those are some beautiful stories. I'm really going to think upon them after this. My question is a little bit convoluted. Please forgive me. Every morning, we do an earth healing meditation. I visualize a pinprint of love and light being placed in the center of the earth and then expanding outward, forcing out negativity to be transformed by the archangels into love and light. Now, when I was doing this the other day, the thought entered my mind that perhaps I should not be forcing all negativity out, that the earth needs to be balanced with both positivity and negativity. What are your views on that? Morris, by the way, is also interested in hearing what you have to say about that.
Well, this is just my opinion, and I could be wrong. I've been wrong before. It would seem like everything that you're doing in there is a very helpful thing to do, except maybe instead of forcing out negativity, surround it with love and light, and let it use it as it will, so that its free will is recognized. Because the negativity, the negative path to the creator is a valid path until the early sixth density. And both paths gives the creator a way of knowing itself. So, but, Ra called the negative path the path of that which is not. It's not a path of unity. It's a path of separation. And the positive path is a path of that which is unity. So, and Ra also said the one infinite creator blinks neither at the light nor the darkness, because both are ways that it can get to know itself. So I would just, send a little love. That's what we always did when we had, our friend of negative polarity, the fifth density, was making psychic readings. Ross said the thing to do in meditation was to send it love and light, and send love and light to ourselves and surround ourselves in an armor of light, but to send love and light to the negative entity, because they are our brothers and sisters, and that they will eventually know that too in the sixth density.
Okay. So I shouldn't have it going out like that, then it should just be an envelopment.
Well, I think it's your intentions, and your visualization that's the important thing. You could visualize that love and light going everywhere and surrounding negativity, but just not forcing it out.
Great. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you for the question.
Mm-hmm.
What a great question. Thank you for asking that, Linda, and Morris. And yeah, beautiful response. Thank you, Jim. I see Andy had a question. Would you like to ask, Andy?
Yes, please. Hello. Hi, everyone. Hello. My question is about Carla, and I know she had a lot of physical pain pretty much throughout her life. And I believe I read somewhere that physical catalyst was to steer her towards her path of seeking. So how come, like, when she was well established in that path, why was that catalyst not then removed? Why was it still necessary? And what was her approach to it?
Well, the catalyst of pain came from the rheumatoid arthritis that she had, juvenile rheumatoid arthritis, that happened to her after she was 12 years old, and she had a near-death experience. And part of that near-death experience was that she was needing to learn the lessons of how to give love without expectation of return. And for her mom and dad, that meant that they never complimented her on whatever she did. They always told her how she could do it better. And so by the time she's 12, she wanted to be of service her whole life long. And when she's 12, she said, there's no way I can be of service. I'm not doing anything well enough to be of service. So she prayed to die. And 6 months later, she had a near-death experience. And in that experience, she was given the opportunity of either going on and coming back and living another life, maybe 2 lives, because she'd taken on a lot. And she said, well, I'm not going through that childhood again. So she decided to come back. And so from then on, rheumatoid arthritis was a way that she would supposedly keep from going too far out into the physical world, and would be required to stay more focused on meditation and channeling and contemplation, the spiritual path. So she did her very best to do that, but there were times when she still needed or wanted to do things like that. So it was something that she had throughout her life, because it wasn't a one and done. You don't learn and it's learned and then it's not going to be needed anymore. So the way she handled it was to ignore the pain. And that was what Ra was calling the martyring effect. We had to finally, Ra suggested that we make the decision, Don and I, in order to have a session rather than asking Carla how she felt, because she was so good at just ignoring the pain that she couldn't give us an accurate answer. So then it was necessary for us to make the choices. So that's how it all played out.
Any follow-ups on that, Andy?
So, would you say that she used that I don't understand like what you mean by her ignoring the pain. Because well, I suffer from emotional incontinence according to one therapist, and so like it's just beyond me how anyone can do that, but like or how basically. I'm not saying that in a judgmental way, but does that mean she didn't use that catalyst, or was she so effective at being equanimous in the face of the pain?
The reason she was able to do that was because she had such a strong will. Ra mentioned a couple of times that her will was exceedingly strong, and they had given too much credence to that will, and trying to imagine how she would be able to choose to be a channel for those of Ra. And so it was just the fact that her will was so strong. It's something that she had in place, and she didn't have to think about it a lot. She just decided to ignore the pain. Now, I can't say that she ignored all of the pain. She felt pain, and she had to respond to it, but she didn't feel it like most of us would.
Okay, just one quick follow-up. But I don't really expect a full answer. But I mean, how is ignoring pain? I mean, how is that different from, say, radical acceptance, where, I mean, did she just accept that, okay, this is it, this is how my body is?
I'm not really sure, but I think the way that worked for her was that the ability to ignore the pain was able to ignore most of it, but she wasn't accepting the pain. She was trying to ignore it. If she accepted it, then she would probably feel that, it was going to be too painful, and she would have to curtail her desire to go out and, have a party with some friends some evening, or, just the way that she looked at it. She didn't want it to be a curtailing effect on her life. She wanted it to just be as little as possible. So she didn't give it the recognition that most of us would. And really, most of us would have no choice, because I don't think our wills were quite like hers.
Wow. Okay. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you for your questions.
What a great question. Thank you, Andy. I do have one follow-up question on that. Do you think, in addition to the test of will, Jim, would it be fair to say that it was also kind of a test of faith, of her ability to still believe in her heart that all is well and all will be well, in spite of the enormous pain that she was going through?
Yeah, she had a great deal of faith, for sure. I think that's right.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't think I could do that.
I couldn't. I've got osteoarthritis. It's pretty painful, and I can't ignore it.
Yeah, and you had your hip replacement not too long ago.
That took a lot of pain away. That was great.
But it must have been super painful up to that point.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you. Curtis, you had a question?
Yes. So this is a question that Jim can answer, or anybody else. Is there any exercises you do to clear or cleanse or help your chakras? Years ago, I used to do this YouTube video that showed the lights, like each chakra, and had you like do a vowel sound for each of it. And I felt, okay, that helps you with the sound, light, and vibration of the chakras. And my understanding is like the light we are getting has to be absorbed through our body, through our chakras, and for us to balance the chakras, to understand the light of the different chakras, meanings like the red, the orange, the yellow, the green for love, and so on. Is there anything that anybody does to exercise those or cleanse them or anything?
Well, if anybody else has a reply, please do make it, because I don't have a particular exercise for that. Go ahead.
I might encourage to put it in the chat window if folks have responses they want to share to that. Otherwise, maybe if it's a short response, if anybody has anything, I can't say I do.
Okay, thanks.
That's a great question, Curtis, as all your questions are. I do see Raquel next in the chat window, and then Luke and Aram and Bill. And I did want to invite, if anyone else has questions they want to ask, do put them in the chat window. We are good on time at this point. Definitely have time for more questions. Raquel, did you want to ask?
I did. Thank you. Hi, everyone. Hi, Jim. Thank you so much for being here as always and sharing your beautiful energy with us. We appreciate it. I do have a question. I was involved in a very intense conversation with a friend of mine, a masculine, yesterday, and it was in regards to sex. And I have a question for you, and to see if you can shed any light on this. Is it possible with sexual energy transfer for you to polarize positively in this third density? And then if you're using it in a dominant way, does that depolarize you?
The use, as far as I know from what Ra had to say, using sex in a dominant way is negative polarity. So if you were trying to be positive and dominating somebody, you would be depolarizing yourself. Now, as far as positive polarization with sexual energy exchanges, Ra suggested that up until the time that your heart, your green ray energy center, is open, that there isn't really any sexual exchange of energy that goes on. So that in order to get an exchange like that, then the personal work that you do, your work in consciousness, is necessary to get the heart open. And that's where you would need to also open up the red, the orange, and the yellow, so that the prana, or the love light of the creator, could flow through there and open the green ray. And there, that is where you see the creator as everyone. And with that open-hearted look at the nature of creation, then when you have sexual energy exchanges with your partner, then there is an exchange possible. And especially if both you and your partner have an open green ray, then the exchange is basically doubled, the power of the exchange, the amount of energy.
Yeah, thank you. That's how I personally view it, and is trying to work with the energy if I get a chance to. But I was just wondering about people who are using, having a lot of partners and having a lot of sexual, I don't know if it's transfer or just having a lot of sex, period. What does that do to them in third density, if anything? And so that's where I was trying to relate it to, like, how does the transfer work? Because, I was speaking to somebody and they were just like, yeah, I've had a lot of partners and, I'm pretty dominant. And I was like, well, I tried to relate it to how it would work through the information that Ra was relating to us. So I was just trying to correlate it and see how it would work for us here in third density using the energy. But personally, I would try to use it in the way you just referred to, and it's just interesting. I just wanted to know, basically.
Well, it's my opinion, and I could be wrong, that having a lot of partners is probably not the way to go, because I think Ross said, the more disciplined entities realize the mated relationship is a powerful relationship that allows you to purify that love that you're sharing and move into the heart. Whereas if you have a number of relationships, it's hard to love everybody with your whole heart.
Yeah.
There's just too many. And
Yeah.
I think it dilutes the experience.
Yeah, that's my opinion. But when you're speaking to somebody who doesn't have the information that I have, and I can't really just sprout out, you're not having sexual energy transfer. I basically was just listening and was saying, okay, but what are you getting out of it? But eventually they said they're not getting anything out of it, and that for them, it's not resulting in anything, and it's no longer a path they want to go down. So they were kind of explaining how they went through that constant search. And I guess they were probably trying to find the creator, is my opinion, because like when you're trying to find something external of yourself or that love, it's really the creator's love that you're seeking. And I was trying to help them to understand that that love is within themselves, and that, I didn't want to opinionate, but I was like, if you find a partner that you really care about, that's when that energy becomes potent and stronger. And that's where you kind of develop that exchange better, and everything you're looking for will kind of be within you, and then you can share it with that partner. But yeah, it's interesting because in right now society tells you, oh, run around, do this with a bunch of different people, and that's never been my opinion. But it's other people have that opinion, and I just wanted to know how it affected them on a polarization level, and you know, so
Well,
you explained it well. Thank you.
and your opinion is something I agree with totally.
Okay, thank you. I don't like to push it, but I do express it sometimes. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
It's a great question, Raquel. Thank you. Jim, if you don't mind my asking a follow-up question, I know there's been a number of times when you've shared a bit about your sexual energy transfers with Carla. I was wondering if I could ask, like, maybe in a little bit more, a little more detail, a little bit deeper. Like, when you would do sexual energy exchanges, was there some sort of prayer or meditation that preceded that?
We always dedicated the sexual energy transfer to the service of the one infinite creator. So Ross said that that type of a dedication would double the power that would come from the orgasm. And we discovered that sexual energy exchanges before the raw contact, the night before, would make the contact longer because it gave Carla more vital energy to use. And it's the vital energy that Ra needed to make the contact and to have it be a certain length of time. So we felt that that was the way to do it, and seemed to work.
So was the dedication in the form of a spoken prayer or a meditation? Was there a ritual with it?
We discussed it to start with after we discovered that it did make the sessions longer. So once we had discussed it, then we knew that we were both going to do that. We didn't have to say it in words. That was our intention. We set our intention for every time we ever had a sexual energy transfer.
Such a beautiful thing. Yeah, thank you so much for sharing that. Luke, did you have a question? Would you like to unmute your mic and ask?
Hello, everyone. Hi, Jim and Jonathan. Appreciate you guys, giving this, spending your time and hosting this event. Yeah, I have a question more on the mechanical side. So I'll just read the question. So what's the relationship between dimension and time and space or space-time? Are they orthogonal concepts or related? For example, fourth or fifth dimension also have a time, space, or space-time?
Yes, all the dimensions. You have a Kit Kat there. All the dimensions have both space-time, which is what we're in here right now, and time-space, which is the metaphysical or spiritual realm. So there are incarnations from time-space into space-time in each of the dimensions up through about the middle of the sixth density. And so that's basically what they are.
Awesome. Thanks for the answer.
Thank you for your question. You say hi to your kitty for me.
Any follow-up questions on that, Luke?
Not really.
Good, thank you. I do see Aram and then Bill next, and I think that's all I'm seeing in the chat window. So I did want to encourage folks, if you still have questions on the Zoom call, feel free to put them in the chat window, and we definitely have time for them. Otherwise, Aram, would you like to unmute your mic and ask?
Yeah. Hi, Jim.
Good morning.
Good morning. Good to see you. So my question, and I feel like some of it has been addressed a little bit by some of the earlier responses, but it's a question about being service to others and illness. I've noticed in my circle of friends, there tends to be a lot of people who are very service to others oriented, but then they get cancer or they get some type of illness that kind of stops them from being able to be so service to others. And I know it sounds like Carla had that orientation. And I'm wondering if the illness is something that they just pre-incarnatively chose and it's not something that they could have avoided, or if something about the way they're being of service is maybe contributing to them getting sick.
I think in most cases, it's an individual pre-incarnated choice that you really have a hard time figuring out what they're learning, but knowing that they are learning that what they need to learn is all we can ever hope for, because so many people do have diseases, and I don't think they contract the diseases because they failed in some sort of service. I think usually that diseases are a way of helping us learn more about why we're here and specific lessons. A lot of times, Ross suggested that sometimes if we didn't use a catalyst that had come our way in a conscious fashion, then the disease would come into the body that would give the mind a clue as to what had been missed. And then if that could be utilized in the conscious seeking of how to be of more service and realize your own gifts of service, then the disease could be healed. And I think that everybody has that potential and probably has had something like that manifest in the life experience. But I know I have a friend that she used to come to our meditations here years ago. 5 years ago, she had 2 strokes, and now she's in a care home in southern Indiana, and the right side of her body is paralyzed. Now, I don't think there's anything she missed in her life that would cause her to have 2 strokes, but I have no idea of what she can be learning from that, because it is such a difficult situation, to have half your body paralyzed. But we just have to know that, we are here in this third density illusion with the veil of forgetting, and we just don't see everything that's possible. And so I know that there is some lesson that she's learning, though I have no idea what it is. And I think a lot of people are in that situation. But some are in situations where their own behavior has brought it about, and their own behavior can correct it.
Any follow-ups on that, Ron?
Yeah, I do have a follow-up. And I think it's related to what you said earlier about loving the self first before, being able to love your neighbor. Because I see this pattern where people are, it feels like they're overgiving, but it's out of a lack of self-love. And I don't know if there's a question there. It's just if maybe you have some thoughts on that.
It may be. I mean, I think anything is possible. We're all unique beings, and we all have pre-incarnated choices, and they play out in a certain way for some people, in another way for other people. And I think that anything that you could imagine is probably possible. If it could be imagined, it's possible.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you for your question. Sorry, I didn't have a better answer.
No, it's fine.
No, I think it's just a great reminder of what our friends in the Confederation have said so many times that you alluded to, Jim, that we just never know in this incarnation with that veil. We just never know why things are the way they are for others, for ourselves. Hey, that last thing you said about imagine reminded me of something that you were sharing with us before we actually started this recording. And I'm guessing the folks who are watching this on YouTube would love to hear about this a little bit. You were mentioning that you were listening to some sort of audio recording or podcast of somebody who had interviewed John Lennon a while ago, I think on the very day that he was shot. Would you mind sharing that story again with folks here and folks watching on YouTube?
Okay. Well, when I have my lunches, I have my iPhone and I put it on news, and it has all kinds of stuff. But today there was an interview with John Lennon that was part of it was played by a woman who interviewed him on December 8th, 1980, the day that he was assassinated. So it had been 5 years since he'd made any music at all. He just disappeared from the music scene. He and Yoko Ono lived in New York City in this large hotel. And so she asked him, well, John, it's been a while since you have played anything, and you haven't even had any interviews. So how are you? What are you doing now? He said, well, I think it's time for me to get back into the music business, because I think I need to do something to help people who do not know the power that they have to change the world. And I want to share with them, you know, basically the song he had, Imagine, that they have this power and that we all can work together and make this a better world. So I want to get back into the music business and make this my message to everybody until the day I die. And it was that evening that he was assassinated.
Do you remember that date? Do you remember?
Oh, December 8th, 1980. I was in Portland. Well, I was outside of Portland, Oregon at Yamhill, working with the folks at Cosmic Awareness Communications. And it was that evening that Paul Shockley, who was the channel for Cosmic Awareness, his daughter went missing. Star was her name. So we were all trying to find Star. And then all of a sudden we heard the news that John Lennon had been assassinated. And then later on, Star showed up.
Yes, I remember. I was freshman in college that day, that year, and I do remember very well hearing the news. It was difficult. I remember the Time magazine cover that came out that week that had his picture on it. And the caption said, "The day the music died," and it did very much feel like that. So may I ask, looking back on that story and that person and that life and that particular incident, how do you interpret that from a law of one perspective? Would you say that that was something he pre-incarnatively planned? Would you say that it was perhaps something else?
I really have no idea. I mean, I imagine it could have been pre-incarnatively planned that he would be assassinated. I mean, I don't know if John Kennedy planned to be assassinated. I remember the day he was assassinated. And I don't know about Abraham Lincoln. He was assassinated, but I have no idea. I think it's possible, you know, for negatively oriented entities to enter in and to do their work, no matter what your plans are. But again, I don't know.
That's what I was thinking. You know, it is entirely possible there are negative entities who really did not want to see him change the world as he probably would have if he had continued. No. You have said yourself many times that you grew up in the hippie generation and were part of the hippie subculture. Were you a big Beatles fan at that time?
Oh, yeah. Beatles, let's see. Trying to remember the name of it. You can tell I'm a big fan of forgetting their names.
Oh, okay. You were saying you have some Beatles socks or something that you're wearing?
Well, Happy Socks are they're from Sweden, but they also have a theme of the Beatles. So my socks that I've got on right now, the only socks I wear are Happy Socks with, now they've got the Beatles theme.
Oh, nice. Yeah, you know, I remember in college, I was quite a Beatles fan, and I remember watching documentaries about them. I remember reading about them, and I do remember when they went to India and studied with Maharishi, and I think it's fair to say they were largely responsible for bringing Eastern spirituality and mysticism to Western America pop culture. And I do remember them saying specifically at some point that the Beatles believed that the four of them were really just one entity and four different manifestations of the same entity. I thought that was fascinating. That was part of my spiritual awakening.
So my hippie years were spent in Gainesville and Jacksonville, Florida. And the group there was the Allman Brothers Band. They were located in Jacksonville. That's where they got their start. So they were one of my favorite groups at the time too.
Great group. Yeah, love the Allman Brothers. Hey, I do see a couple follow-up questions from Janet and Andy. If there are follow-up questions on this, go for it. Janet, and then Andy, and then Raquel.
I have a little bit of a strange anecdote to share with you all about John Lennon and his death. I was actually very close friends with his and Yoko's psychic at the time, who was a follower of Edgar Cayce, and they lived in New York City. She lived in New York City with around the block from the Dakota apartments. And I can just tell you, I was very aware that there was a lot of negative entities around at that time. It was the 70s in New York. So, I mean, the 80s, 70s to 80s in New York. And I just want to try to keep this anecdote brief, but I think this, my friend, the psychic who died a few months after John did, was open to, was a negative experience for me of channeling. She had opened herself to too many entities and did not close off and became morbidly obese. And anyway, it was just a very strange time, but we do have strawberry fields now in Central Park, which is a lovely blessing and a lovely place to remember the beauty and the love that that John brought. And we also see it through his son, Sean.
Indeed. Thank you for sharing that. Andy?
Yeah, I think we've had this discussion before about music, and I'm just thinking, in because Ra and like there's several teachings out there that say that, you know, that time is an illusion, that there is no time. So like, how does that mean, like, beyond this realm there's no music? Because the way music works is by time, you know, you've got one note and then another note, and then you've got several notes playing you know, in synchrony. Is that a word? I don't know. Anyway, you know, so like, if there's no time, does that mean there's no music?
That's a very good question. What do you think, Jim? Any thoughts on that?
Well, I think number one, there is music at all times, everywhere. It's called the music of the spheres. And it's music that's made by all of the planets and the solar systems and galaxies. And as to their time, Ross suggested in the third density, there was a past and a present and a future. But outside of the third density, it was what we call the eternal present, which I don't know if we have words to express. But in general, it could be that everything is happening at once. And the path we take is a path we choose from all of the infinite possibilities of the present moment.
Yeah, I would imagine vibrations, light, some form of that, which doesn't necessarily depend on time.
Just as a little sidelight there, we have a fellow who is a friend of LNL Research who's writing a book, and he's been writing it for over 10 years. He's comparing the law of one to the 5 major religions of the world. And the reason he's doing this is because back in 1979, he had an experience where he was taken out of his body to a place he called God's private concert hall. And he heard music, and it was no note was ever repeated. It was all unique and infinite. And he went there at least 50 times. And these were experiences that were all out of body, plus had what you would call the nirvana or kensho samadhi, the type of experience where he became one with the creator. So he can testify to the music that's in the, as he called it, Giant Weirdness's music hall, because that's his name for God. It's Giant Weirdness, because it is totally unexplainable. And it changes from time to time, every time he has an experience.
Oh, that's a great story. Thank you for sharing that. Raquel, you had a question, and then I believe Bill has a question in the chat window.
Yeah, it's just chiming in on everything we're discussing here. So I'm from the Caribbean, Jamaica specifically, and Bob Marley is a huge influence in our culture. And I just want to relate to what we were saying about you know, the negative entity coming in and disrupting the path of you know, a positive entity that's sharing and spreading information that can get to the mass, basically. And I can tell you that everybody that I know feels that's what happened to Bob Marley, including his family members and people in the community. And it's just funny that I personally know that music changes minds. It has an influence on people. One minute they could think this way, and then the music that they hear can definitely open their minds, change their minds, open their hearts, bring up emotions that they've never experienced. So I believe not only does it exist, but it also changes your DNA, I guess, or it changes your heart, your spirit, everything. And it can influence your spirit and your heart. And I will say that I do believe that the negative paths have interrupted a lot of information that would be relayed through music on a positive level by affecting the entities that are spreading that information, i.e. Bob Marley. And like I said, a lot of people in my culture believe that. And it's just interesting to see. I know that I personally use music now as transformational, as healing, as a way to change certain negative thoughts in my mind sometimes. So I think it's a good influence on us as so-called humans. So I wanted to hear your opinion on that. If a little bit further, Jim, if you do believe the negative path do interrupt people like Bob Marley, John Lennon, and so many more that I feel like have been spreading such positive information, and then boom, they're just out. But their music does live on, I will say.
Yeah. Well, I'm also a Bob Marley fan. And I think that you're correct that sometimes the negative entities are attracted to a certain person or group that is providing light and love and the power to change consciousness to the world, whether it's done through music or through the raw contact. That was the reason that the negative entity of fifth density came to the raw contact, because there was a light, a power that we could give to the world that they could use to change their consciousness and move in a positive sense. So I think this is very true also for musicians. Whatever you do in your life that has transformative effects for those around you, it's well to be aware that it's possible it would attract a negative attention. And from time to time, it's good to go into your heart and in meditation, cleanse your room, cleanse your place where you do your work, or just cleanse that being around you so that you carry that with you. And then send that kind of love and light to any kind of negative source or force that might be looking at you as a possibility of changing what you were doing to help the world move in a positive way.
Thank you. That's actually a very important part of spreading the information positively, is what you just said. Because my daughter is into music, and I encourage her to use her music for a positive light, like we're discussing. She's learning guitar, she sings, so I'm like trying to direct her to use it, and she has started. And but it's important for me to remind her to do what you just said, which is to protect yourself, cleanse your space, and also, I will teach her about sharing that energy with the negative, because I do teach her about the law of one, so I will teach her that part as well.
Well, that's beautiful. I'm so glad you're sharing the law of one with your daughter.
Yeah.
I think that's just the way to be, way to raise children. Is to give
I
them
think so
that
too.
option.
I hope it's not a bad thing. I hope so. Thank you, Jim.
No. I mean, they can refuse what you want to say.
Yeah,
I think you need to say it.
Okay, good. Because I was like, I feel the need to, and that's why I do. Not shoving it down her throat. Just when she asks, I share.
Yeah, that's the perfect way to do it.
Yeah.
Indeed. Thank you so much, Raquel. Great questions, and huge Bob Marley fan here too. Hey, I know Bill has been waiting very patiently in the chat window to ask a question, and we do have time for one more question before we wind things down. Bill, would you like to go ahead, unmute your mic and ask?
Yeah. The Confederation uses the term unmanifested self quite a bit. How would you define the unmanifested self and perhaps the manifested self? How would you define that, Jim?
The unmanifested self is the self that does not require any other self in order to do its work. In other words, if you have your internal thoughts about what you're going to do during the day, how you're going to handle situations that you're facing, that is something you decide in yourself. You don't need anybody else to do that with you or for you. The manifested self is the one that interacts with other people and shares energies and energy exchanges of the mind, the body, or the spirit, so that together you can move in one direction or another in your life paths.
Any follow-ups on that, Bill?
No, those are very simple explanations, and I don't think I've heard anybody else explain it like that. Thank you.
Thank you for your question.
Great question indeed. Thank you. I believe that was the last question in the chat window, and that does kind of bring us to just about the end of our time here, Jim. But I did have one more thing that I wanted to do with you because
You got a quiz for me.
I do. I do. We have invited you here, of course, to, whoops, sorry. We have invited you here for questions and answers, but we also invited you here for a pop quiz. As you know, I'm sure, and everyone knows, pop quiz was a term that Carla often used to refer to the unexpected catalyst that we get from time to time to
Right.
test our understanding of what we came here to learn. Jim, today we're going to ask you 3 multiple choice questions to test your knowledge about pop culture. You have given us supremely useful knowledge about spiritual principles to help us relate to the more enlightened entities around us. In return, we're going to give you supremely useless knowledge about pop culture to help you relate to everybody else. Sound good?
Okay.
Good. So let's see, folks on Zoom, you can put answers in the chat window if you want. Folks watching on YouTube, you can say your answers out loud if you want. Jim, obviously you know that all is one, but how much do you know about the one ring to rule them all? Or more specifically, the epic Lord of the Rings movie adaptations of J.R.R. Tolkien's classic books by New Zealand director Peter Jackson. Have you seen any of those movies, Jim?
No, I haven't, and I'm not going to do very well on the quiz.
And yet you did have a cat named Gandalf. So either you or Carla must have read one or some of those books.
I'm pretty sure Carla did. Yeah, Gandalf was the character in there. I know that.
Right. Oh, okay. So Carla read the book, but you never read the books or anything like that.
Never read the books or saw any of the movies.
Oh, okay. Well, this is going to be a short quiz then.
Well, make a yes or no. Then I have a 50-50 chance.
Sure. Or folks on the Zoom call, maybe you can help Jim out with this. Question is, the first movie in the first book was called Fellowship of the Ring. Question is, how many members of the Fellowship of the Ring died in the quest to cast the ring into the fires of Mount Doom? Was it A, 2, B, 3, or C, 4?
I'll try B3.
B is a good guess, but the correct answer is in fact 2. The Fellowship of the Ring consisted of Gandalf the wizard, Legolas the elf, Gimli the dwarf, the men Aragorn and Boromir, and the 4 hobbits, Frodo, Sam, Merry, and Pippin. Boromir and Gandalf died, although Gandalf was reborn as Gandalf the White, so maybe the correct answer is 1.5. Speaking of rings, I do have a follow-up question for you, Jim. Do you still wear the wedding ring from your marriage to Carla?
No, I have it on a chain in my bedroom that hangs from the wall, along with, I think, another ring that she used to wear, a ring that Don gave her that was his mother's ring.
Wow. Oh, that's beautiful. And do you call your ring the Precious by any chance?
No, I call it Carla's.
That was an inside joke for Lord of the Rings fans. Let's move on to the next question. The second question. What is Bilbo Baggins' relationship to Frodo? Is he A, Frodo's father, B, Frodo's uncle, or C, Frodo's cousin?
Frodo's cousin, C.
Good guess. Yes, indeed.
And it was a guess.
It must have been, because in the movies, Bilbo looks way older than Frodo, and Frodo even calls him uncle. But in the books, they were actually cousins born 78 years apart, interestingly enough. And in the movie, Elijah Wood, the character who played Frodo, was only 18 when he started filming this thing, which is an amazing thing to be doing at 18. I couldn't even figure out my homework at 18. Do you remember what you were like at age 18?
Yeah.
Were you like a fairly typical high school senior teenager or different?
Pretty much, but I like sports as an athlete.
What sports did you play?
Baseball, played shortstop, and we were the state champions. And I played basketball up until I was in 10th grade, and I was too short to go on with that. And I played football as a quarterback, and we lost as many games as we won. And in track and field, I pole vaulted, and I had the school record.
Holy smokes. What was her favorite sport?
Track and field, pole vaulting. It was my first high.
Oh, really? Got a good rush off of that from pole vaulting? Hi. Thank
That was
you.
a joke.
Yeah, I'm sorry. It took me a couple of seconds to figure that out. Yeah, I'm a little slower today. All right, we got one more question. Question is, the name of the second movie of the trilogy is The Two Towers. What are the names of the two towers? Are they A, Barad-dûr and Orthanc, B, Orthanc and Minas Morgul, or C, Minas Morgul and Minas Tirith?
I'll say A, Barad-dûr and Orthanc.
You are correct, indeed.
Ah, I got 2 out of 3 this time.
That's pretty good. Better than last time, as I recall. Very, very good. Yeah, interesting. According to the movie trailer, the two towers of the title were Barad-dûr, which was the fortress of the Dark Lord Sauron, and Orthanc, the stronghold of the wizard Saruman. But in the book, in fact, the correct answer would have been Orthanc and Minas Morgul. According to Tolkien, the two towers of that book were Orthanc and Minas Morgul, which was the stronghold of the wizards of the Nazgul, which didn't even appear in the movie. Apparently, not even Tolkien was really all that clear which were the two towers, because he didn't really intend to write the book as a trilogy. He meant them to be one single book, but I think his publishers made them split into 3. Am I remembering correctly that a similar thing happened with the Rock Contact, that Dawn at some point had wanted to be all released as one book, but it maybe for financial reasons had to be split into different volumes?
Yeah, that was when we were ready to publish book 3, self-publish. Those are the 8.5 by 11 blue covers. And he wanted to put them all together in one book. And at that time, I was in charge of keeping our books, the cash we had on hand. And I let him know that it was a great idea, but no, we didn't have enough money to do that. So we didn't do it.
So, and I believe that led to the spider incident, if I recall.
There's a lot more to the story. That's true.
Yeah.
I got angry and I got bit and I gained 20 pounds of water weight because what I did was in the orange ray of one-to-one relationships, and I was angry at him. I didn't resolve it overnight or before overnight. That's where the wood spider got me. And our negative friend intensified the power of the bite. So it was like a water moccasin. And it took a while to get over.
Indeed, I do recall hearing that. Fortunately, it was not the giant spider she loved from the Lord of the Rings.
I probably would have been dead. Just from the spider bite. My body would have been dead. I would go on.
You'll have to see the movies for that, and that'll probably have to wait for some other incarnation. Jim, I wanted to thank you for joining us today and for playing along with our silly little game here and everything else. Did you have any final thoughts, reflections to share before we part ways for today?
Well, I think this particular time I had more fun than ever before. For some reason, it wasn't because the questions were funny or anything. It's just because everybody has such positive vibrations and asking questions, and gave me a chance to answer them and maybe throw a joke in here or there. But I want to thank you all for your questions, because that's always very inspiring to me to know that people like you exist, that you have a spiritual journey that you want to share with others around you, and that together we can help share that journey and make this world a better place, because it needs a lot of love. It needs a lot of love.
For sure. Well, can't think of anyone we would rather spend more time than with you, my friend. Love you very much and appreciate the love and light and the laughter that we've been able to share together, and wish you well in your future endeavors. In the meantime, thank you for all you've done and continue to do in service to others. Thank you to all our friends at L&L Research for all they do and continue to do in service to others. I would be remiss if I forgot to mention that this is annual fundraising time for L&L Research. And for anyone here on the Zoom call, anyone watching on this on YouTube, if you have benefited at all in your spiritual life from the work of our friends, it'd be a really nice way to show some thanks and gratitude and to share that with others if you go to the L&L Research website and find the donation button up there. Donations are tax deductible, and encourage everyone to do that and continue to spread the love and light. Thank you for everyone joining us on the Zoom call today, for being here. Thanks for your wonderful questions and your love and light and all you do in service to others. Thank you to everyone watching on YouTube who are continuing to do work in service to others as well. Until next time, in the love and light of the one infinite creator.
Love you all. Take care. Looking forward to next time. Hope you have a great day.
Love you too, Jim.
Hey, Rael.
You.
Love you.
Thanks, Jim.